sound is good. The wind isn't too disturbing. Because we still have an option to move indoors if you want.
I think you're more comfortable here, صح? Like it's kind of...
It's more because Jahan, they're really rowdy and loud.
The fam is there? Okay.
Yeah. It's after lunch, they're like a bit wild.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters, peace and love, and welcome to another episode of Buckle Up. This is the lockdown edition. I started this, with the COVID-19 situation, and man, oh man, I swear to God, obviously there's, bios and proper introduction with this one. Definitely, I want to start with one of our heroes. She's an Iraqi-Canadian multimedia artist, an author, an incredible mom, a loving wife, an amazing personality, somebody who I look up to and somebody who inspired so much myself since 2006 or 7 when I met, her one and only with Yassine, aka Narsi. SUNDUS ABDUL HADI, peace and love, assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Buckle Up.
I've been watching it for so long, and we've had so many members of our family and extended family, so it's really an honor. Thank you so much.
Wallahi, it's the honor is mine. So, okay, are you ready to buckle up? We're gonna do this right now, where we're gonna be buckling up virtually because we still gotta do
windy. This. It's windy. I've got the poncho on. Okay. I think I might even shoey like.
Hala, yalla.
No, we're good.
All right, she born ready, mashallah. طيب. Sundus, I'm really kind of interested to know and tell us about your childhood. How was it like? What was it like actually growing up? And how was your family? How did the family influenced your path?
Wow, well, they influenced my past, my present, and my future. My family is like the most foundational part of my being. Alhamdulillah, I have to say I come from a family of artists, so I never had a hard time when I decided I wanted to follow this path as an artist. Nobody really stood in my way. It was really supportive. And my mom's an artist. My dad's an architect, and he's also a big, supporter of the arts in that sense. He's always supported my mom in her work. And then as me and my sister grew up, we both decided to follow the path of becoming artists. My sister Tamara is a photographer, and
shout out Tamara, we love you, fam.
Yeah, shout out Tamara. So basically, I mean, art and my family are intertwined. We are each other's biggest supporters and also our biggest critics, because we have to be that. I run my work by my family all the time, and they're the ones who really give me the real deal. I grew up in Abu Dhabi. Yeah. I was born there. So I'm a Gulf baby. I was born in the Gulf boom in the 80s in Abu Dhabi. And I'm originally, as you know, I'm originally Iraqi.
Yeah.
But for a long time, I used to think like, oh man, I wish I was born in Iraq. Because, I can't really identify with being born in Abu Dhabi. It wasn't something that you could say like, oh, I'm Emirati. You can't say that. So I always held on really, really tight to the fact that I was Iraqi. And then as I grew up and moved to Canada and we did the immigration, I realized that actually that experience was really significant. Like being born in the 80s and the Gulf boom in Abu Dhabi is an experience that a lot of people shared, and it says a lot about our political and historical past as Iraqis in the diaspora. I feel like a lot of Iraqis, at least in my generation, have passed through the UAE or the Gulf in along their journey into migration, and that's part of my history. I can't deny that,
Yeah, of course. I mean, truth. But again, your work, I think, just to speak a little bit about that, your work has, I think, transcended. We're going to talk a little bit about it, of course. And your work is impactful. It has definitely inspired me. And I am like the least kind of creative person, and it definitely inspired that.
I disagree. I totally disagree.
But for me, for example, one of the people that inspired me to start for a Revolt blog is Yassine Narsi. For you, Sundus, what was the main kind of catalyst that led you for this creative path? Was there one moment that kind of inspired you to start? For me, the moment was when I saw the Narcis, the Offendims, the Low-Keys, the Shadia Mansours. That was me. Khalas, that was it. Was there a moment such like that for you?
That's very interesting. It's funny. It's like asking a fish about the ocean.
Wow.
When do you realize the environment that you're living in? I've always been immersed in art.
MashaAllah.
I've always looked around. Alhamdulillah, I've always looked around, and there was creativity around me through my parents. So, no, I don't remember an exact moment, but I do remember that when I was 14 years old, I was at an AISA in Abu Dhabi, and they asked, they suggested to our grade, was grade 9, they said, you have the choice to either go into computers or to take art. And I chose to take art.
Yeah.
And I was the only student out of my entire grade that chose to do the art class instead of the computers class.
Yeah.
Wallah al-azim.
Wow.
So basically I ended up having my art class one-on-one with this incredible teacher who was so supportive, and we'd spend that art class just chatting and getting to know each other and having, developing a really beautiful teacher-student bond while making art and creating.
Mashallah.
So when I decided, it was that was a great memory, I have to say. Shout out to Miss Arthur.
Miss Arthur, definitely.
Miss Arthur, man. Yeah.
Shout out to her. Sundus, I kind of did a little bit of digging. I'm not sure if you will be able to share that with us, but you did your arts education in Concordia University, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now, my digging kind of found out that you dropped out of a course because of... because of the faculty didn't engage with an identity. I want to get the story from you. Is that right? Is that something you can share with us?
Oh my God, that's actually, so a few times I've started presentations with that story, because I feel like that what happened that year was really, really, what's the word? Transformative for me, if you want to say. So it was first class, first year university, and I was signed into studio arts and art history. So I had to do this, 101 art history class where they basically, teach you about the entire canon of art history. And I was really excited because I had done super well in art history in the past, and history is just one of my passions. And I was really interested. For me, art history isn't only a way of knowing about our history, but it's also a way of learning about other cultures and through their art.
100%.
So I walk into the class. It was a huge class, like 200 students. And the teacher walks in, super confident. And it was, just to remind you, it was September 2002.
September 2002. Oh, okay.
It was a year after September 11th, the September 11th attacks. And we were still really traumatized from that. As Arab and Muslim communities in the West, we really, really felt that the repercussions of September 11th really, really hard on our own identities and communities, and having to constantly defend Islam and to defend, who we are. So walking into that class, the teacher basically said, I want to read to you from what was it? She read to us from this statement by Lynn Cheney, who was Dick Cheney's wife at the time. Dick Cheney was the vice president of the United States with the George W. Bush era. And in this statement, Lynn Cheney is basically saying that institutions and universities in North America have to, shouldn't teach about Middle Eastern and Islamic art history and history in general. because doing so would make them supportive and sympathetic with the attackers of 9/11.
Now, when you heard that,
and
I
terrorism.
really want to know, what did you do?
So I'm like, yo, she's gonna be like, no way, well, not here. This is, in this class, we're open-minded, and in this class, we're gonna teach you about all the cultures. And I was really, really sure because, I mean, I looked around, of course, I faced racism and bigotry and, what's the word? Ignorance in the past, and especially after 9/11, but I really didn't think it would follow me into university, which I really thought was an environment that heralded like critical thinking and acceptance of other cultures, right? And so she said, well, for that reason, I'm going to be only teaching you the achievements of the Western canon in art history.
Bam! I feel like Sundus is up already. Let's go.
Well, I was 18 and I was really, I wasn't as outspoken as I am now. I was really, really sad and shocked. And I started having that like weird feeling of, like the knees buckling and wanting to say something and getting nervous and like feeling all of the blood rush to my face because I really just wanted to stand up and say something, but I had no courage. And I thought somebody would say something, and nobody did. The class just went on, you know what I mean? She just kept it moving. And so at the break time, I just walked out of the class and I dropped it on the spot, and I signed up for this other class called Issues in Ethnocultural Art History. And that is when I finally like discovered how I could articulate what I went through in that class, why it's so important to talk about art from other cultures, and how to actually talk about how representation matters, especially when it comes to art about other cultures. You know what I mean?
MashaAllah. If knowing everything that you know now, you'd still drop that class again, or maybe like stand up? And what if like history repeats itself, but you face the courage? What would you have said?
History is still repeating itself, of course. True. I mean, that teacher continued teaching that class. Actually, she taught it the entire time I was doing my degree, and I had to take it. It was one of those like core courses that you had to have taken to graduate. And then finally one year, I think she took like a sabbatical leave, and somebody else took the class. So that was my last year. I registered for it. And then guess what? When we got to the section on Islamic and Arab and Mesopotamian and Egyptian and African art history, the teacher skipped those chapters.
Wow.
She skipped them anyway. I mean, she didn't have that, ideological framework for why she was skipping them, but she skipped them anyway. And I remember by then I was more confident, and I went to her office and I asked her, I was like, I just wanted to ask why you chose to skip the chapters on Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt and, the Islamic civilization. And she said, well, to be honest, I just don't know enough about those cultures to teach them.
Wow.
And it was really, I mean, her honesty, it was, it was great to at least have that conversation, but it was still painful to realize how systematic and entrenched this ignorance of our part of the world is to the West.
But see, mashallah, everything you're saying still proves and now will showcase, obviously, how important your work. Sundus, since you have lived in both the UAE and Canada, how have that kind of affected your art in a way? Is that something that you think have, affected your art?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I call it duality. It's this ability to like see two sides of yourself, and not just see two sides of yourself, but see two sides of everything. And that's what got me first really interested in the whole like concept and notion of like contrast. Two opposing things that actually, when you put them together, create some really beautiful new meaning. And I guess that's what we are as these like dual hybrid people. It's enabled us to have like a sensitivity to seeing the world in a different way, and it's given me the chance to really to see beauty in the contrast. So everything from like, I relate it a lot to being Iraqi more than anything, because the experience of being Iraqi is very, very unique.
Yeah.
And living this generation as an Iraqi, going through, consecutive wars and the way politics intervenes in your life, and how nothing is not related, how nothing is not like everything is connected. And I really see that as in every aspect of my life.
Oh, okay. Facing some technical difficulties. Oh, we're good? Okay, we're back. We're going to continue this. I love that. I love the background. So cool. Sundus, you've done, mashallah, a lot of many workshops. What is one that kind of stands out, and where was it kind of held? If you can just share with us.
For sure. Okay, so I've always dreamed of doing something artistic in Iraq. Every time I used to go to Iraq, it was always family, right? We'd go to see the fam, we'd go, just to be in that bubble. And that was my experience of being in Baghdad always. So I never really got to build like a community of artists, of youth, until 2010, when actually I got invited to be a distance teacher, like a distance teacher. I don't know how to describe it. Basically, I was in Canada and I was facilitating a 1 month long workshop with youth in Baghdad. It was put together by Regine Sahakian, who had started this organization called ECHO Sada for contemporary Iraqi art. And part of what she was doing that year, and why the year that she was active doing Sada, is that she was bringing together artists who lived in the diaspora to connect with, teach, mentor artists in Baghdad. And I was actually the first one. It was the pilot program, and I was the first teacher from that whole program. It was amazing.
How did you feel? Like how did you feel going through that?
It was just like a full circle. It was basically made me realize that all of the work that I had ever done was leading up to that moment. Everything that I was working towards, and the kind of audience that I wanted to reach, and the kind of youth that I wanted to connect to, they were all there with their ears and their eyes open to my to whatever I was hoping to bring to the table. And actually, I'm in touch with a lot of the people who were in that workshop, and they've changed my life in really positive ways. And I feel like when I go to Iraq, inshallah, in the future, I have a community now. And it's all thanks to that experience. I taught them, what did I teach them? I taught them about art and social justice. That was like the theme of my workshop, art and social justice.
Bless. Sundus, do you, again, and I just want to say thank you so much for your time. I know, it's Canada, family, and I'm very blessed that you're giving us this.
This is your family too.
Wallahi, I know. Wallahi, I know.
This just feels like it's just perfect.
I know, mashallah alayki. Do you ever feel that there is a gap or a difference in ideology between the Arab region and the West in terms of approaching like arts and culture and recognizing their importance in the society? And I think the story that you talked about before would, maybe proves that. But if you can maybe shed light on that.
Oh my God, there's so many layers to that. And there's layers, and then there's generations, and then there's political events, and then there's issues when it comes to like how politics can intervene with funding, and how independent artists can be in their work, or how uncensored they can be in their work. There's so many layers to it. I feel personally, as Iraqis, we really are blessed because we come from a very rich heritage in terms of the not just Hadara Somaliya, but also like the modern art movement in Iraq in the 50s. You know what I mean? The Jawad Salim and the Baghdad Modern Art Group, and Rawad. Like those are the artists that actually ended up having huge influence on artists in the Middle East in general. So
the groundbreakers, pun intended.
Exactly, the groundbreakers. And actually the first ever Arab Biennale took place in Baghdad in 1974.
1974, yeah.
1974, like there's so much rich history there.
Sundus, I'll be very honest with you. I want to open something, by you. I'm from Saudi Arabia. And one of the reasons why I like Narsi, Omar Effendim, Shadia, Loki, is because they kind of impacted the way I think about the countries. Again, Saudi Arabia, one of the most conservative countries in the world. We weren't really taught about Iraq or Palestine. That was not in our curriculum in terms of that, because I was studied in a Saudi public school. As a Saudi, we're not allowed to go to international school because back then we were not allowed as a Saudi, citizen. So I owe a lot to people like Yassine, Loki, Shadia, Omar, for educating me, about, like, for example, Omar talking about Nizar Qabbani. I'm going to be very honest with you. I didn't know about Nizar Qabbani, like, seriously. And because it was never really taught. And it was never really something that is pushed. So when you hear someone like me say that, do you feel like, what I'm trying to say is that all the civilizations that we have amazing history, incredible culture, music, art, and you were talking about the Iraqs, the Syrias, and and you look at what's happening right now, what's the first thing that kind of comes to your mind? Is it, I feel sad. Like, I feel really sad that this is happening, and culture and history and art is like, we are copying the West. Like, a lot of young guys, they go and imitate the West or get inspired. But we have from within so much things.
It's amazing though. No, you make total sense. I see it. And I feel like, it's strange, but when you're in the East, a lot of the times you see people imitating the West, and then when you're in the West, you see people kind of returning to their roots because of this the strangeness of being displaced, like the search for identity. But it happens a lot here as well. I mean, most of the Arabs that I knew growing up weren't embracing their Arab identity in Canada or in America. And it took kind of like an awakening for them to be like, oh, shit, this is a part of my history and my identity, and I need to like be more respectful of it. But I feel like it takes two things. I feel like it takes, well, while you were speaking, what the first word that came to my mind was teacher. So what is a teacher? When a teacher comes into your life that really shifts your worldview, that's a person who's there to really leave an impact on your life and to transform something within you. And that's the true definition of a teacher. And that's the definition of knowledge. And what knowledge is this beautiful gift that keeps giving. One person can pass on the gift of knowledge, and then it continues to grow and grow and grow into becoming this wonderful well of wisdom,
I want to comment on that, because there's I don't know if it's a verse by Ahmed Shawqi, or I'm not sure. قم للمعلم وفه التبجيل كاد المعلم أن يكون رسولا. Give the teacher respect and dignity, because the teacher almost became a prophet. But I really feel what you said. So that's one. Number two.
Yeah, so teacher was the first one, and then knowledge was the second. Like those were the two. Just the knowledge being this, getting the right sources. You know what I mean? Like 100%. Getting the inspiration from the right place. What is it that you're being inspired from? Is it something that you could connect to your ancestors, to your roots, your DNA, or is it that you're interested in fulfilling? Is it something that's ego, or is it something that's spirit? You know what I mean? And for me, the spirit has everything to do with my work, and my work as an artist, as a writer. I really call it like work with a capital W, because I see it as fulfilling a life's purpose. Not just fulfilling, a means to an end. you're doing something to leave for future generations. You're
Wallahi,
sharing knowledge.
Yeah, أختي, والله, we need more of this, because again, you know, El Cid actually wrote this proverb in Jeddah, and that's the first time I met him in Saudi Arabia. You know, maybe I'll put the picture. He actually wrote a proverb.
The brother.
Shout out. He wrote it's an old proverb that says الإنسان الذي لا أثر له لا حياة له. You know, a human being that has no impact, you know, has no life. And I really believe everything you said. Sundus, I know.
And there's so many sources. Honestly, there's so many sources. You can go to the Quran, and there's so many sources there. You know,
it's funny that you said that, because during Ramadan right now, I was just talking about this. I had an interview right now with a German website, and you know, they're talking about Muslims and Ramadan. And actually, you know, I'm not a religious, you know, person, like in terms of like, you know, reading a lot, but in Ramadan, I try to make time. And you're absolutely right. These words, the sentences that are coming out is just, you're absolutely right. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing the same thing. Actually, this month of Ramadan. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We're good.
Okay, is it better? Okay. So this month, I've really been making the effort to approach the Quran as truly as a holy book, and reading it to seeing how it unfolds, and really approaching it as a source of like divine knowledge and wisdom, and it's been really transformative as well.
Wow.
And that's the thing. Books. You know,
well, I mean, the first word,
Quran as the first book.
The first word was Iqra, and it was given in an orderly fashion. Iqra, like
exactly.
Iqra, like we're not doing it. I'm saying it. I'm one of them, and we should.
And I'm a huge lover of books. Like books to me are like everything.
we're gonna talk about that, but I know we don't have much time. From a radio host to another. Now, how did it feel to have your own show? Groundbreakers, which I was really honored to be featured on, and I really blessed.
Yeah, you're one of the first, actually. One of my first guests.
So I want to know. Okay, so you talked about, you know, a lot of things, culture and art. I love the music you play. It was just like, what? This was incredible. So I think the question I'm trying to say is other than me and Narcy, who were your favorite guests? I'm just kidding. No, yeah. But really, who I know, yeah. It's put on the spot right there, Sundus. But you can handle it.
Well, I guess, you know what? Like, I'm blessed to be a part of a huge community of artists. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like everybody that I wanted to ever speak to is 1 degree of separation away. You know what I mean? And I feel like we should approach anybody who's like, whatever, famous that way. You shouldn't put anybody necessarily on a pedestal and think like, oh, they're unreachable, they're untouchable because they're famous or because they're well known. Bil'akis, you know, everybody should be accessible. Everyone's a human being after all. And but there were 2 people who I had on the Groundbreakers that rarely give interviews. And are not easy to convince to like give interviews. And I feel to this day so blessed to have had their presence on the Groundbreakers. The first is Suhair Hamad, who's a Palestinian poet. Yeah. Actually, it was before the Groundbreakers. She was my last guest when I used to host this show called Caravan.
Caravan, yeah.
So that was like it was a show that I inherited from another host that was about Arab and Muslim issues and content. And she was actually my last interview while hosting that show. I think it was back in 2010. Was Suhair, and she very rarely gives interviews. So I feel very blessed to have had her on the show. And she was so generous with her time, with her sharing,
such a huge legend. I love her. Legend. I love her Twitter. Like, she's just so cool. And who's the second one?
The second one is Emory Douglas, who's a huge influence on my work. He's the former Minister of Culture for the Black Panther Party. Wow. So he is like an OG. Yeah. You him greatly. and his influence, not just on myself, but on many, many artists in our generation and the generations, before us, has been huge in terms of just the art becoming really a tool for liberation and for social justice. I mean, he's just amazing. And he gave me a really dope interview too for the Groundbreakers. I actually used that interview also in my studies. So I was doing my master's at the time, and I wanted to find a way to create content that I relate to no matter what, whether it be for my radio, whether it be for my work, for writing and academic work, and then my artistic practice as well. So that interview went on the Groundbreakers. Yeah. It went in my thesis. Wow. It went in Take Care of Yourself, the exhibition that I curated, and and now it's in my book that I've been working on also. So
MashaAllah. Oh, definitely. I want to ask you about, of course, the book. Big up to that and congratulations. But before that, a few years ago, we had the pleasure to feature you on Revolt Mag, your project, Orchestra. And I just want to say, I know you've done a lot, but I know I keep going back to this. This is something, mashallah, like legendary, mixed media experience using painting and sound. Just for the people who are not familiar with it, can you tell us quickly about it and what was what inspired to that? Because for me, that work is just legendary. Love it.
Thank you. Orchestra definitely was. I feel like I did it with such a sense of urgency, and I was like, I need to do this, and it needs to be in the world, because there was so much negative, negative imagery around Iraq after the war, that what I chose to do, and we were talking about contrast earlier, what I really wanted to do was take a lot of the media images that were coming out of Iraq, of these masked militants holding AK-47s and rocket-propelled grenades and all of these scenes of violence and war, and transform them to becoming instruments. Instead of becoming weapons of war, I would take out the AK-47 and replace it with a trumpet, or I would take out his RPG and replace it with a clarinet. And then it just evolved into becoming this entire full series about art and culture, war and culture. So that was Orchestra. The Forgotten, which is the piece, I know that it's your favorite, and you featured it in Revolt as well. Yeah. It was very much about how we can reclaim, our image as Iraqis, as artists, as intellectuals, who are working towards, who are working against war, basically, working within war, working against war, and really giving them space to be remembered and to be recognized for that work.
Yeah, I'm actually, as we're doing this, I'm just looking at the Forgotten again, and I think it's just really,
you love it. I know.
I know.
I love that you love it.
I bored Sundus out of looking at this picture. I was like, every time. It is actually, if you don't mind, I want to see if I can share my screen real quick here and see if we can. Can you see my screen, Sundus?
In a minute. Yes, now I can see it. Oh yeah.
Man, I don't like. If we want to go a little bit philosophical, a little bit on this one, in terms of how long did it take you to write this? What are the things that you expect people to get out of this image? What's the sort of feedback that you've been getting from people?
I feel like this painting, it came out very fast, and I was using two reference images at the time. The first one is this really famous portrait of a maqam band. Charlie band. Actually, it's the Kuwaiti brothers, Dawood and Salah al-Kuwaiti, I think is their name. They were brothers, Iraqi Jewish, actually, that had a very, very well-known Charlie band in the 40s, 50s, 40s, I think, in Iraq. And it was their band posing. And the second reference picture that I used was a hostage video. The hostage videos that we had been seeing so many of.
Oh,
these,
wow. Why
really
the blend?
horrible.
Why the blend between two?
They just looked alike to me. They looked alike. And I can't tell you that it's like a thing. It's like a synapse when it comes to imagination. Your brain just does this thing where it connects, you know, like, why did I see, you know, helicopters looking like violins, مثلاً, or why did I see a wall looking like a blast wall, looking like a qanoon? They just couldn't describe it. Or like a microphone looking like a gun, you know?
Yeah. It just takes me places. Sundus is a children's book written, illustrated by you. Congratulations. This is such an amazing thing. Tell us about the overall, you know, like, tell us about it in terms of like the storyline, your illustration, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you're really taking me like past, present, and future now.
I try.
Okay. So Shams.
You know, I'll be very honest with you. You know what's on the back of my mind right now? I see Yasin. Like, when is Sundus gonna be done? That's what it is.
They're coming and checking on me.
Okay.
Like,
I know. So yeah.
But more out of interest and trying to distract me than.
Okay. Bless you. Yeah.
They like to come in and do the comic relief. You know that video of that guy doing like the BBC interview, and then his kid comes in?
Yeah. It just happened to me. Because, you know, sometimes Ahmed comes through and he comes in and he says like a brand, like a Samsung or whatever. Like, it's like, yo, he likes watching. I'm like, yo, okay. But yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
They're totally trying to do that to me, man. They're trying to air me out on.
Bless them.
Buckle Up. Okay, so Shams is basically, I've been working on this project for almost 10 years. 10 years.
10 years?
Wallah al-azim, 10 years.
Since I knew you. Wow, mashallah. Wow.
Yeah, before.
Wow.
It's I wrote the story in 2011. And it just kind of
what is it about?
spilled out of me. So the story is about a little girl named Shams, and she's made of glass. And one day, Shams breaks into a million pieces. You know, a tragic event happens. She shatters. And the book is about her putting herself back together again, and her journey towards healing, really, and surviving trauma. And it's written in illustrated magical realism. So it's, in a sense, the symbolism is really what teaches the message. It's not really about the violence or like what happened exactly. It's more about simplifying it to its most simple terms. And everybody knows that feeling of shattering or breaking.
True.
And having to put yourself back together again. And everybody knows some version of trauma or loss or displacement and or war. Everybody knows a version of that, even if it's somebody who's, lived in a peaceful country their whole life. They could have lost a parent, or, they could have had another event that shattered their life that they had to really build themselves back up from. So it's that's pretty much the story of Shams.
Wow.
And it's a very simple and empowering tale.
How do we order it?
So I just put it up for pre-order.
Yeah, it's pre-order.
I'm telling you, 10 years in the making, and it's been a very, very slow process. I had 2 children along the way.
God bless.
I got my master's degree.
MashaAllah.
I wrote another book in the process as well. I did, been doing a lot, but I really see it as kind of like my gift to the world. And I just put it up for pre-order
Release
on my birthday.
Okay.
Yeah,
wow.
it's going to be released in July, inshallah.
July. Okay, so it's khalas, it's set. This is inshallah happening.
Done deal. No turning back here, man.
How are you feeling? You're good? Like, I think the question I'm trying to ask is, what would you like people to get out of it? I know, and I love the fact that you said what you said, and everyone will treat this book differently. But you personally, what would you like to, what would you like people to perceive it?
You know what's amazing is this whole coronavirus it's been insane. It's been insane, and I'm
crazy.
Sure I'm not the only one who,
Yeah. We're going crazy here.
Like we're going crazy here.
Just quickly, like on May 2nd, 2020, I know Narcy on Instagram posted a funny video. I don't know, he was talking French or something like that. It's just a funny thing that everyone.
It's nuts. We're going nuts, right? But the ironic part is that after all of this, 9 years of working towards this goal, when I wrote the book, when I wrote the story, it was just a short story.
Yeah.
Like one night, it came out of me, and I said to myself, I want youth in refugee camps and in war zones and in Palestine and in Iraq and in Syria and in Yemen. I want those kids to read this story and be like, yo, that's me. You know what I mean? I relate to this, and I want them to feel good about themselves, and I wanted it to be something that can reach those communities.
Yeah. I'm sure, I'm just thinking, I wish it could be like a movie. I'm sure already Narcy is kind of pushed that, We'll
talk about that next. But so basically, that was really the intention of why I chose to really pursue this book. I was like, I really wanted the youth of the Arab world to be able to have a character, a book that they felt that they could draw strength from, strength to their negative experiences. And then by divine intervention and like angels, a really amazing publishing company in Palestine picked it up, Tamer Institute. And Tamer Institute do outreach and literacy work in Palestine.
Wow.
in refugee camps and in community centers and in libraries. They basically engage with the youth through books and storytelling. And so they picked up the book, and they're basically translated it to Arabic. And the and it's coming out through Tamer Institute in Arabic also around the same time in July. Roughly, things are still unpredictable right now, but Tamer Institute, it's amazing that the intention of the book ended up materializing in this way. And the week before the lockdown in Montreal and around the world, I had just bought my ticket to go to Palestine.
Yay. Wow.
And I was supposed to be in Palestine launching my book in April. So the launch date was actually April 14th?
Oh, wow.
And I had a week of, the itinerary was beautiful. I was going to go to schools and refugee camps and libraries and present the book. I was going to have an exhibition at the Mahmoud Darwish Museum in Ramallah, and I was going to go to like Beit Lahem and Qudus, and it really was like a full circle, right? That the book.
Inshallah, you'll be able to do that, fam. I think it's really amazing. Look, I tried in this, and I'm again as a fan and someone who you impacted personally through your art, and I say this really, really openly. I'm somebody who really got impacted by the 4 names that I told you about, and then obviously I got to know you. I was like, wow, culture, peace, and art through you, and then obviously your family. Narcy is somebody who impacted my. I keep telling him this. Couple more questions and I'll let you go. And these are questions regarding, you and Narcy. I had Narcy on Buckle Up, and he's like, "Yeah, you got to ask Sundus about me." I want to ask, how is Yassine at home? Like, how is that Yassine? Who's Yassine?
Who is Yassine? That's classified. Yassine is so many things. He's so many things. The Yassine is a big part of Yassine. You know what I mean? I feel like his ability, his gift of being able to be in public and use his words and spread messages is a huge part of him. And I see him here at home. He takes in a lot, right?
Yeah.
He's absorbent. But then when he goes out into the world, he expresses.
Vocal.
You know what I mean? He like puts out everything that he absorbs in the home life and in his environment, you know. So he's a very, very interesting person. Longest standing relationship of my life outside of my parents and my sister.
Bless.
We've been together for.
I mean, you inspire us. Really, you inspire. I mean, I'm talking even on
19 years.
You know, like mashallah, 19.
19 years.
Wow, mashallah, mashallah. This is knock on wood.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Again, you inspired, like, even, you know, I was just talking to Hanan, my wife, about this. Like, we know each other 15 years. We've been married for 12 years right now. Yeah. And it's just amazing. And looking at how she plays a big monumental role in everything that I do. Maybe it's not public, but she does really help out and always discusses with me things, and I see the same thing with you and Yassine. It's always been incredible to watch you guys, and may Allah protect you. My last question before I let you go, Khalas, it's done.
Thank you, that's beautiful. I appreciate you and Hanan and Ahmed.
It's the truth.
You guys are beautiful and unique and interesting and
Wallahi,
just
you
really
made that
pure
impact
and good-hearted.
Again, you made that impact on all of us. Now, last question is, if you could go back in time, what would you tell Sundus as a little girl?
It's interesting. I mean, I feel like now, because I'm a mother, that's what I do every day. You know what I mean? I give my children the advice that I needed or that I learned as an adult. I share that with them now. So in hopes that they'll be able to use those tools to become good people with good intentions, who attract other good people with good intentions into their life, and to really be honest with themselves and honest with the world, and really just treat the earth right, man. You know, like I want, you know, I wish, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot. I wish I wasted less in my life. I wish I you know, was more conscious of how to throw away garbage better. And I know it sounds stupid, but I've been thinking about that a lot. I've been spending a lot of time in the kitchen and a lot of time just, you know, organizing my life and my home, and it makes me sad to think how wasteful we've been with just plastic and objects and things, and how we just, like, the throwaway culture. And I was never taught that. Nobody was taught that in our generation, that we have to be mindful of the impact that we leave as human beings on this earth. And that's something I really want to be able to change, at least for my kids. Yeah,
true. I don't want to get you. I don't want to get you, you know, emotional. But I asked this to Yassine, and I feel like, you know, with Nofi, rest in peace. I never met him, but I have to tell you that, because I think I owe it to me and to you and to him. It's someone I've never met, but his impact has reached me as a Saudi kid. Just, you know, that why? Because subhanallah, of people that talked, you know, about him, you know, with Nawar, it's just really an incredible. And again, I'm talking from a stranger kind of point of view, right? So I just wanted to, you know, say rest in peace. He's somebody who from a stranger. I don't want to get you emotional, and I know. I talked to Yassine, and he also got that. But I feel I'm giving you from someone who didn't know him, who didn't have the pleasure. It is coming an incredible amount of so much wellness and goodness. And when Narcy talks about him, how important he was, and I just wanted to be there just to shake his hand, you know. And I just wanted to say that just out loud, you know, and just rest in peace, praying for him always and for his soul. Just that's it. That's it.
You know what? It's you know, I feel like people who have lost very dear people to them, they connect on another level. And I know your father
Yeah.
has left a huge impact on you.
Oh, yeah.
And in turn, the way you speak about him and the way that you bring him out in yourself and in your own
subhanallah. It's
I see it as well, you know, when
it's amazing.
when we're touched by angels, you know, we're touched by angels, and also we understand that pain. We understand the grief on a different level, and I know that connects us to something higher, you know. They're teachers, actually.
Truth.
So speaking of teachers, Nofi was my teacher, and your father was your teacher.
Yeah.
There are people who come into your life that just spread knowledge.
But again, it's just crazy the fact that out in Saudi Arabia, you know, got to know Narsi, got to know, got to know you, and then got to know of, Nofi, rest in peace. And it was just amazing. So I just had to let that out. I want to thank you so much for your time. I'm sorry I brought that up, but this is Buckle Up, and we love you, we salute you. And actually, this is coming from Hanan. She's asking about mamahood. She's like, ask her about mamahood. How is it like?
That's a whole other
That's a different topic.
Buckle Up that Hanan has to host. Actually, I want to see that. I want to be there for that one.
That. Yeah, but
we're going to be a Hanan Sundus Buckle Up on motherhood, because I can talk for another hour about motherhood.
That's true. But may God bless you. And
I love that question. Thank you.
Salute, Sundus. Can you tell us your social media handle real quickly? We're going to put it right.
Yes. So it's at Sundus Abdul Hadi, SUNDUS ABDUL HADI. And Twitter is SUNDUSAH, but I don't use it that much. But Instagram, you can catch me there.
Peace and love, like and subscribe, and all the
Thank you so much, Has.
Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam. Thank you.